Mate, I've been ripping into the Wim Hof lately. So I can appreciate that. And it makes you feel pretty good.
Hold time. I heard you're setting some records.
Yeah, 3 minutes 30.
3 minutes
I started
30.
at about 1 minute. So I was like, I got to 1 minute. Why am I puffing out? This guy's doing 4 or 5 minute sets.
What time is the progress over? How long have you been doing this for?
I've actually, you inspired me to do it last year. We were talking about breath work, and I've spoken to you for some time going, what's breath work? Like, I know how to breathe.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
this.
that's the
you
first.
just breathe.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, bro, that's not how you breathe. And then I was like, cool. So I went and read Wim Hof because of you. And then I get it and I like it and I like the models. And then I started doing the breathing. And then I've got to this point where I'm not just breathing. Yep. I'm doing the deep breathing. I'm doing the diaphragm style breathing. Good. I'm doing the holds. I'm challenging myself with the breath as well.
Yep.
So I'm not just going, just do the breath. You do your 10-minute breathing from Wim Hof on YouTube and then just let it be.
Yep.
Rather, I'm going, look, test yourself. Push your breathing boundaries. And now it's getting to a point where I'm like kind of not breathing for 3.5 minutes. And the euphoria is just next level, and it's helping athletically, it's helping in business, and it's helping to be calmer. It's good, man.
What do you, I think this is a great point to start the podcast on. Breath. It's the connection to our life experience, this physical life experience. Everything we see was once a thought.
Yep.
Before it became matter, something
Yep.
that's been produced. And the breath is the breath is the great equalizer. For me, it's the rudder to my life.
Yep.
And I think about the breath being this powerful.
Yep.
You know, we come into life, we take our first breath, and we're given this life.
Yep.
We then have our last breath.
Yep.
And our life is over, so to speak. So the quality of our breath, how we're breathing in between those 2 points becomes really important.
I think it does. I actually found something out that's quite fascinating because I put it into YouTube the other day because I'm aware of this breathing thing, and I was like, how to breathe. Like I knew how to breathe to become a more enhanced breather for athletic ability and for stress reasons, which we just spoke about. But I actually wanted to know, how do you breathe? Like, because they say don't breathe up and down and create anxiety and stress. Rather, you should breathe through your diaphragm, and that actually as children, up until the age of 5 or 6, we actually breathe through the diaphragm.
Yep.
And then we start sitting down like we are right now, which encourages this vertical breathing technique. So I found it funny. We start out in life designed properly.
Yes.
To breathe properly,
Yep.
to have cold water immersion properly, to be resilient, and then conditioning in our environment actually sort of goes, no, we're going to weaken you.
Yeah.
We're going to destroy your structure.
Yeah.
We're going to tamper with you. And then I suppose the game is to get back on track to become a performer, which is the context of this podcast, how to enhance your performance in life.
Yep.
But absolutely, like I can't stress it enough. Yesterday I did a huge run, got to that last bit and I was like, oh God, this is hard. This is tough. And I just went, breathe through. I said to myself, breathe through your lungs. Like breathe out through your diaphragm and your lungs, and like you got wings. And I was doing it, and because there was so much oxygenation going in, I was able to kind of be pretty relaxed on the last bit of the 21 Ks.
Yeah.
So I think it is important. Absolutely, you're always conscious of your breath.
Yeah.
100%.
It's that important. The root word of breath in Latin, soul or spirit. We're only learning so much about this, the importance of creating greater meaning and a deeper connection in our life. So much of the breath allows us this connection point. It's overlooked, like you said, because it's something that happens involuntary. Okay, it'll happen without conscious thought. Okay, when we're taking a breath, taking a correct breath, we've got to be careful with naming correct breathing and trying to take a proper breath, so to speak. I prefer to use the terminology of efficient or inefficient breathing. So breath has a lot to do with the state of your mind too. You'll notice very similar, crossovers between the nature and the quality of your breath whether it be short, shallow, fast-paced, or it's deep and enriching, it'll affect the mind. And the mind also affects the breath and gets you into this mental, emotional state where the breath is actually affected. And this creates the physiological problems as well too. It's this symbiosis, this relationship the breath, the body and the mind all share. When it comes to any breath work, the difference between breath work and something like ancient pranayama is that anytime we're breathing, all right, we're breathing naturally. It just happens naturally, involuntary. What happens is we bring our attention to a breath, or we might do what we just did, created some intention and a pattern for it. That's breath work. Pranayama is a deliberate control of our breath from ancient lineages. Sometimes in some texts they say 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. When it comes to inefficient breathing, what does that look like? I see this a lot in stressed out business owners. We're talking about high performance. What's one way we can truly harness and hack high performance? It's to get control of our breath, the connection, to teach ourselves how to regulate ourselves mentally, emotionally, to unfunk ourselves, to gain back control of our physiology, so that we're not a victim of stress. So the environment doesn't dictate to us our reactivity and activity. We can respond. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's important, very important, because I've got a lot of external forces that come into this business. I've got a lot of external forces that come to me personally. I've got a lot of external forces that work on my staff. You've undoubtedly got a lot of external forces that come into you. And I think when you can detach yourself from a situation and to somewhat detach yourself from the external environment that's coming in on you, and you can do the breath work, right? And you can feel comfortable and you can start to feel the joys of that feeling of the breath. You start to realize that you're not external, you're internal. And then you get to feel good, even though there's a lot of stuff coming outside you that's trying to make you feel bad. And I think that's what I've learned is sometimes you're erratic or you're very reactive, potentially before you go to bed. And if you can push yourself into that breathing state, right, and you can start to feel that good breath and you can feel that relaxation and that euphoria. And like you said, that breath, I suppose, connection or existence with the soul as one, that's when you start to go, this is great. Nothing controls me externally. I'm controlled internally. And I've got intent with my breath and how I feel. And then you start to change everything around you. So it's powerful stuff.
It's very, very powerful stuff. I love that we started with it, in the topic of high performance. And, it's already opened a couple of doorways. I'm sure we're going to come back to this, back to the why. It's the deepest why. I know you love the power of the word why.
And I'm glad you started at breath as well, because there's a lot of learnings that the guys listening to this podcast should learn. It's something that I was ignorant to for a long time around breath work. Not so much ignorant, just didn't really know what it was. And I've realised, especially through your teachings, Wim Hof's teachings, etc., that the breath does connect you with purpose, because the breath goes past the ego. Which we can tap into today a little bit as well. It goes past the ego, goes to kind of your inner child, your soul, your reason for being, your want to help humanity, your greater purpose and existence in life.
The inner psychological self.
Absolutely, which is like, it's the why we're here. It's our fulfillment. It's our good feeling. It's the good feeling, like the breath work that it gives you when you're stationary and you're focused on you and how you feel and not everything around you that's making you feel this way.
And there's no one way to do it too. Like you've listed a couple there. Wim Hof's probably the most popular, and breath work is gaining a lot of traction in the mainstream with good reason. It was first, the type of breath work I teach was first brought in the 1970s, sort of around the time when there was a war on consciousness and things like LSD and things were outlawed. Leonard Orr actually discovered the technique that I teach and have modernized a little bit. And it takes us back into this deeper connection you're speaking about. So even for things like the Wim Hof technique, which is more of a Tummo technique, mine is more of a circular technique, very, very similar in nature, but different mechanisms, different responses in the body and the brain. And I like that you've spoke about it connecting you deeper to purpose, deeper to yourselves. Exactly what it does. You know, as soon as we start to get into that pattern, particularly when if you're watching this as video, you'll see us breathing through the mouth. I don't suggest breathing through the mouth at all through normal day, but when I do breath work, my technique actually uses the mouth. Helps us to get a deeper access and move away from the analytical thinking mind, the supercomputer, always judging, discerning, working out things logically. We switch that part of the brain off, which you know all too well. It gets us into that limbic brain, that emotional brain, deeper to our deeper connections intrinsically that know who we really are, where that inner psychological self lies, our dreams, our ambitions, our meaning, also our intuition that knows when we're in the presence of someone who's going to, you know, enhance our life experience, and also know when we're in the presence of people or situations and circumstances that maybe are going to affect our performance, our life experience, and where we want to head with our lives.
I think that's important. I think we definitely spoke before, and we spoke with Andrew and Will, and we said, what's the agenda for the podcast? And it was going to be performance, right? Because you love leadership, you love enhancing leaders. You're very self-led, okay, through your awareness. I think that's what we share in common as well, and why we've become friends and comrades, right? But I think what we need to do next in this agenda, and we can revert back to breath work and that connection point. We can also revert back to purpose, because you know I love that place, okay, and I think that's really important this year for people to understand. But I want to raise a point which is important, which leads on to what we've been talking about around the soul, itself, the breath work, and then there's that other side which you just dropped on, okay, the mind, the ego, the logical nature of self, the conditioning, the patterning, the experiences, what you've seen, that programming that you've got, and how we can almost find, I suppose, a way to be aware of the ego, and how we can find a way to double down on our soul and our self and our purpose. And so why don't we start with a little bit of a chat around ego, like what you understand ego to be, what I understand ego to be. And I think this will be quite profound and impactful to anyone watching, because I would say there's a very high statistic of people out there that are underperforming because the ego gets the better of them, and they never quite connect with self. So I'm keen for you to kick that off. Our mate, the ego.
Look, first I'll say, I see a lot of teachings when they talk about the ego, or people share about the ego. The ego can be your ally. It's a fantastic tool. You don't learn how to take hold of that thing, and have practices, disciplines, and perspective. It's gonna negatively affect your life. It's gonna limit you in ways that you seldom realize. Most of the behaviors that happen are all unconscious. The ego keeps us at a certain level of thought. Everything I spoke about with the breath and getting into the deeper states of mind that are going to enhance or allow us to reach into our higher self and not place such a lower limit on ourselves, come from us actually, I wouldn't say getting rid of the ego, but I'd say transcending it, going beyond the limited thinking that is governed by so much of the past. We're anchored down by the past. And then when we think about the future, what we do is we create this gross underlying inner sense of, here's my limit and that's where I'm going to go. If we're truly in our higher self, the upper part of our nature, and we have practices or teachers that can help us find the upper part of our nature, which is why coaches and mentors appear, we get rid of these underlying upper limits that we place in ourselves. And this is when we start to tap on the door of what's known, what we're here for, as high performance. So for me, a high performer must learn how to integrate through self-awareness, through bodily discipline, so understanding how to navigate the vessel, how to keep yourself in a state of calm, so that we don't become a slave to our emotions and our cognitions, which refers to thought and emotion. A lot of our thoughts can colour our emotions, the emotions colour our thinking. It's a bit of a two-way street. Behind every thought that we have, there's an emotion that usually drives it, behind any strong emotional experience we have, there's a set of deeper thoughts, beliefs that will govern that level of thought that will keep you at a certain level. Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
Yeah.
And I think you've probably got a more advanced scientific, psychological explanation of my understanding. The most profound book I've ever read is Power of Now, which I know you've read as well. And it was good for me.
Yep.
It was good for me because it helped me to grasp that we aren't our ego, and that our ego is what we've seen. Our ego is our conditioning. Our ego is our programming. The ego can be phenomenal as well,
absolutely,
like you're saying here. But most people are restrained and captured and jailed by their ego because their ego has experienced what they've experienced, and there's that past controlling them. But I think what's really important is when you can understand your purpose through, for example, breath work, or your purpose through asking those bigger questions, okay?
And then taking action.
And utilizing the good parts of the mind,
Yep.
okay, to take you into places visually, for example, that you've never been before, okay, and to get into that emotional feeling which you're talking about that's not negative but is quite empowering, okay, that's when I think we can start to believe in something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Because the ego likes to believe in things that have happened and attach him or herself to that.
Yep.
Whereas when we start to go ahead and we go, look, I'm going to use my super mind or my super ego to create a new perspective and visualize that is in alignment to my soul and my purpose and how I feel and what I desire, then what you do is you have this high performance metric, which is what you're talking about, where there's a correlation and a connection between purpose and perspective. So I think that's a hard one though, because what the most common motivator in life is away from motivators, which is pain.
Yes.
And ego wants to get away from all the pain, and the super powerful mind wants to get away from all the pain that they've experienced in the past in their life. So unless they connect with the purpose, for example, through the breath, and then they're able to visualize a much different future, which they can get into the feeling state of, things never change. Yep. And that they find themselves.
Would you like to explore a bit of what I'll try and do is, if you want to do it, is I'll bring a deeper understanding through, try and shrink a lot of knowledge into one tangible thing that people can take away right now.
Let's go for it.
I love that you've touched on pain. And I love that you're giving a lot of meaning to what the ego is. The easiest way to understand what the ego is, it's a protection level of the mind. Okay? It's usually the way it's constructed. It's like a safety mechanism that's designed to keep you in what you know. Yeah? And the problem with that is it feels threatened and it responds. Just like you'd have if a lion came through the room, you'd go in that fight or flight state, you know what to do, the brain responds automatically. Just like breath happens. The ego will know what to do in that situation as well too. Pretty dire here. It's a bit different now when we start to talk about like how to manage pain as well too. Okay, so I'll start with pain. And you spoke about it being an away from motivator, and I think for a lot of people in society right now, if I think about the biggest problem in our society, it might sound triggering to some listeners, but we are a weak society. Why? Why are we a weak society? Well, we're not taught fundamentally important insights into how to navigate ourselves. We're so disconnected from our nature, the upper part of our nature, the lower part of our nature. We're a slave to our impulses. So a lot of that's an emotional thing. We're marketed to, we're told to be this way, do that way, have this, you must fit in here, this is your box, stay there. And all this will build up over time. And this is a cycle through history that plays itself out. This is nothing that's new and unique to just you and I. This has been here and it will repeat itself again. This is the human experience. Joe Rogan dropped it recently, strong. Have you heard of this about strong times? Good times create weak men. Yeah. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create better times or good times. It's a cycle. Now, how do we? The question here isn't about just pushing down society and saying we're weak. That's not it. We want to talk about empowerment. self-reliance, which for me is the fundamental thing in all cultures, not just our own, that we need to learn if we're truly going to perform well, live well, and essentially optimize our whole life experience across the playing field of our life. The thing that governs that and all of our decisions that we make in life with these toward motivators, which is the desire, I want to go towards that. So for example, you see a new pair of shoes, you really like the look of them, you're going to head towards those. Yeah. The away from motivator, which is usually linked to pain, fear, it's going to make us impel us towards making a specific decision. You know, that's how we're controlled. It's through fear.
I agree. I'm going to use, and this we said we'd talk about our personal stories, and I think it's to prove a point or to prove a belief, you've really got to show the story, right?
Yep.
And so I want to go even a step further to what you were just saying, and I feel that it is a weak society.
Yep.
I feel like I was a weak person in society at some point. I won't speak for you, but perhaps that was you at some point as well. The thing that I resonate with the most in this society with some of the motivational speakers out there is that we've been brought up to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. We've been brought up to be listening to our ego through the system.
Yeah.
That's ultimately...
And also mentally misled.
Absolutely. And so we sit here and we go, oh, we need to have a hot shower, and then we need to have those cookies that mummy can feed us.
Yep.
And then we need to just make sure we work a 9-to-5 job. And in my opinion, when you can be aware, which we're talking about of the ego and the mind, okay, so we'll keep this surface level. When you're aware that you're not your mind, your mind's your tool in your system, of how you see the world and what you've seen historically and your model and your picture.
Yep.
And when you can, through breath, etc., be ridiculously present, and so you're no longer, or your ego is no longer attached to the past, it's no longer attached to the fears of the future, but it's very present, e.g. through breath work, of who you are and what you want and your greater purpose, you no longer actually have pain hanging around. And so you're able to take more productive, proactive, aggressive moves forward that most would perceive as uncomfortable and very painful in a very comfortable manner. And I think that can create real change.
Absolutely.
Because you're no longer attached to this TV screen of all the stuff you've seen and the programming. Rather, you're going, this is who I am, this is what I want, and I'm no longer going to make this pain or fear-based story that's never, ever going to happen because my ego's attaching to it. Rather, I'm going to do things that the ego would think is uncomfortable or pain-driven to break the ego, so then this new self has arisen and that ego has lost attachment. Now, that's a bit of a mouthful, right, in its own right, but I do believe that we're here and we're not our mind. We're here and we're not our ego, but our mind and our ego is a tool that once utilised can actually help us break more of its own and let ourselves succeed.
Yeah, so much of what makes us weak as well too, and if we could see it beyond our own self-image, a lot of our fears would subside. I was getting towards this reductionism of this information into something called the pleasure-pain cycle. It's the duality of life. Inevitably, if we try to avoid pain, we create pain. But when we lean into pain, lean into our edge, so to speak, something I teach all masculine men. This isn't just reduced, solely just for men. This is women as well too. Is to pursue discomfort. It's character building. It retrains your physiology, particularly with certain hacks we spoke about with using ice and cold stuff that really helps to work the vagus nerve of the body, just like breathwork does, or meditation. We relax the vagus nerve, we can enter the present moment and release and relinquish our control, our attachments, our pain from either past or future. We also create a lot of pain about the future as well. So when we talk about the pleasure-pain cycle being, the avoidance of pain, okay, and the pursuit for pleasure, if we chase too much pleasure, we're going to create more pain. Eat too many cakes, you're going to be fat, slow, and be a burden on yourself. Then you're not going to be able to serve humanity. That's not high performance. When you lean into pain and discomfort, it changes you. How did I find it? Well, I've got very, very painful stories. The very first time we met, you actually were the first person on site after I went through a pretty, I'd say, a traumatic experience where someone broke into my place, stole a very, very large sum of money. And that was quite divine. It was another growth tool for me. Had I have not chose that as an opportunity to grow, lean into the pain of that situation, then I'd still be a pit of sadness right now. What could have been, you know? So to bring some context to it, not that it places it doesn't mean too much in the number, but it's like there's $50,000 was taken, probably a bit more than that. To a lot of people, that would be extremely immobilizing, and it was. I'm not saying it wasn't for me. It was for a very short period of time before it allowed me to create more meaning in my business, more revenue, and it gave me greater perspective as to what's happening in myself. So I chose this as sort of like initiation. I was looking for a mentor at the time. I couldn't find the ideal mentor to work with, what I was looking for, and then this happened, and that was my greatest teacher. Pain is a tremendous teacher if you take and answer the call to lean into it. So many of us haven't been taught how to do that and why to do that. We have the why, the purpose behind it. We're going to do this every single day. Get outside of what we know, outside of our comfort zones, and start to raise our upper limit, raise our standard, and lift the body to the level of our mind that we want to start to create for high performance.
And I think this is his name. I've read a few. It's Joe Dispenza. Okay, yeah. So Joe Dispenza talks about this and he articulates it really well. That back to all the stuff we've seen, our ego and our conditioning and who we are. As soon as we start to do something that's painful, the ego jumps in and goes, stay clear of that. Like you don't want that.
Yeah, it tries to keep you safe.
And it goes comfortable. Exactly, it's comfortable, right? And he goes, no. I'm protecting you.
You've had some pain before.
I'm protecting you. I've got your back. It's all good. Yeah. But he's really just fostering a very soft, weak person, right? But the reason that you're reacting, the why you're reacting, is because subconsciously, right? Mm-hmm. The way you've been developed, your values, your beliefs, your life experience, your childhood has been your subconscious programming that attaches in almost to the ego and says, don't do this.
Yeah.
You got to stick to the program, stick to the computer.
Exactly.
And then when you start to go at pain, guess what, people? The pain changes you to be a better you. But the ego doesn't want that because he's happy with the old you.
Why? I'm going to ask you a question. Why does it do that? Why does it change you to become a better you, do you think?
Because you become different. You're no longer sticking on the same program.
Yes.
The program's getting an upgrade. It's getting the Turbo 200 NASA upgrade.
And I think that's the thing. It's like when I start to talk about problems in society, I don't like just focusing on problems. I want solutions. Most of us in society, that's what I'm saying, we haven't been taught fundamentally the skills, the tools, the things that we need to do to update the software that we learned through modeling behavior from a very young age that was designed to keep us safe. So a kid trips over at a very young age, between the ages of, say, early age to 5. It trips over. One kid trips over and gets back up on his feet, thinks it's a play date. He's having a great time. The next kid has this thought pattern start to arise as he starts to develop his consciousness, his own set of thoughts. And as he navigates the world and makes sense of the world around him, he trips over and he goes, I'm so clumsy. Starts to happen again. And that behavior starts to get reinforced. That level of thought and the belief driving the thought behind it emotionally starts to condition that child to believe that he's clumsy. He's clumsy turns to, here it is again, I'm a failure. And then suddenly a belief's reaffirmed that I'm a failure or I'm a klutz or whatever. It's usually an I am statement deep down. That's also withheld in the body. It's very somatic. That when certain neurochemicals are released in the brain, it creates a level of thought. The body memorizes that from the past and goes, this is me. This is you. Don't push any further. You're unsafe. And that's what the ego does. It keeps us safe.
Of course. And then guess what happens? That little dude, right, becomes 20 and someone goes, why don't you go play football? Or why don't you go play soccer? Or why don't you go and box?
I can't.
And he goes, I can't because I'm clumsy and I always fall over. And he's like, and then someone says, you got to do it. And then he wants to do it because he wants to change, right? But then he goes out to play football or soccer and he has almost a nervous breakdown. Because his subconscious programs and his ego are going, no, don't do this.
That's right.
This isn't normal. You don't want this. And so the pain is huge, the pain wouldn't be huge for you and I because we'd done that activity before. So our competency and our confident level is different. We wouldn't feel the pain. But to him, pain is huge because it's threatening to break his system to make him not clumsy anymore.
And that's the thing.
To make him not clumsy anymore.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's the threat. The ego perceives the threat. When we're outside of our ego mind and not governed by these constraints and these parameters of perspective, what starts to change is we start to see opportunity. That's why the ego, when it's cultivated, it is an incredible tool to push you further,
100%.
but it is also quite a limiting tool because we start to speak about what is perspective. It's our awareness that's shaped by our belief. What happens to a rubber band when you break it? Eventually, you pull it, breaks. That's the break in perception. Break through your barriers, and things open up for you. A lot of people get really scared with that because here's this level of thinking that's holding us back. Here's what could be, and that feels so unknown to the ego. That's scary. That's the dark closet. When really, if we step into that, that's fulfillment. That's joy. That's all the things that we truly want. It's an overused saying. It's a cliche. Everything you perceptively want is on the other side of your fear.
Of course it is. And it's just not even a thing.
No.
It's your ego's fear.
Yes.
That's all it is. And you're not your ego.
Yeah.
So would we want to have ourselves confined to the jail of ego for our whole life because we were told something that our subconscious believed that we never broke because we perceived it as pain to change, or our ego did?
Yeah.
It's ironic.
Yep. That's a big part of my story. So much of what I learned from childhood was, in my experience in my life, it was so much about me getting out of jail in my head mentally. I still remember, if anyone who hasn't suffered any anxiety and has had an identity crisis, you'll know that you're in this place where there's this left to right swarm of echoes that just almost bounce off the walls of your mind, and then in there, all you want is out. But it's just it's something that can only be really experienced if you've had that, explained properly if you've had that, and it's like a jail, and that's all I wanted. I wanted out of the jail. What was my way out? I went through a really, really deep, challenging breakup that, on one hand, it was very, very painful to, especially the way it happened to me. I remembered just experiencing all the waves of grief, but then also deep down, I didn't have a connection. I didn't have an anchor to who I really was. And so I was managing an identity crisis and the waves of grief. Everything was coming up at once. That's where I got my initiation through pain. When I built the ego up. I was running the gym, had a personal training team, successful business, pulling in triple figures, happy, and then everything fell apart. And that's when I started to, I went on a bit of a journey actually, the other way, the wrong way, and I built my body outwardly to represent this, this mask of masculinity, strength. I got huge. And it's funny because this is what the ego does and what self-image does. I look back at photos and I can look back and go, yeah, wow, you were so big, you were so solid. Then I couldn't see that. I was never going to be enough. I never have the perfect body. I'm not big enough, not strong enough, yada, yada, yada.
Because you know what? That ego is chasing pleasure. It's chasing the hit. It's chasing approval.
Yeah.
It's chasing not being clumsy.
I just
it's
put this
chasing
up.
all those fixes.
Yeah.
That's what it's chasing.
Well, that's what we're governed by.
But that's not you.
No, that's not you. That's it. We're not our mind.
No.
We're the one who sees our thoughts.
Yes.
When we start to transcend the ego,
absolutely,
whether it be through breathwork, meditation, through whatever plant medicine's gaining traction, society as well too, for healing benefits, anything that brings you into that upper state of consciousness, a higher connection, and then beyond. Some people like to blow the lid off their head, so to speak, and go into these other realms. But
I say that every day. I want to lose my mind a little bit every day, and by the time I die, I would have cracked myself.
Love it.
But if you're okay with it, can I tell you a little bit about my story too?
Absolutely.
Because I think we're at this point. I don't even know how long we've been going for, but that story is super compelling. We're getting simple and more purposeful as we're going along, which is, I love. My story is very similar, and we would have been a very similar age. anxious kind of guy, could sell, could talk to people, anxious kind of guy, very in my head, very jacked up like you.
Yeah.
Right? Previously.
That's a Central Coast thing.
That's a Central Coast thing. Go Sandy Coast, 2257. See, I even sound like a douchebag when I say that.
Yeah.
But jacked up, looking for approval, looking for fixes, looking for pleasure. The ego's hunting for all these great things.
Yeah.
And
then what?
And then I left a partnership.
Yep.
I got put on show with some legal letters.
Yep.
I kind of shat the bed as well.
Yep.
And I went into my little ego bubble and was like, fear, pain, I'm getting sued, I'm losing everything. Guess where I ended up?
Where?
Back at mummy and daddy's as a 32-year-old.
Yep.
And I was sitting there going, my life's fucked. I'm over, I'm done, I'm cooked, my career's gone, my money's gone, I'm going to be an absolute dead shit, right?
Yep.
And then a little bit of self-awareness came from somewhere, wherever it came, and I started reading things to become more aware of who I was, that I wasn't my mind, that I was myself, that I didn't have to be everything that had happened to me. That was just my attachment of my ego, my mind, and my mind could be utilised to have limitless potential, and I could be whoever I wanted to be. But it came with what you just said. It came with awareness.
Yeah.
And then when I started to understand awareness through books like Power Now, Think and Grow Rich, all of those amazing old school, century-old books on awareness of who we are, right? The fluffy stuff, all of this fluffy stuff that I never would have read in a million years, I just wanted to learn how to make heaps of money.
Yeah.
I started going, this is the key to life.
Yeah.
This is the key to performance enhancement. This is the key to being the best self, right? And I no longer need to be limited by my mind and my ego, but I can use these as tools and connect with my purpose, right? And everything started to change. I changed. I became better. I didn't look for approval anymore. I just wanted to feel great with who I was and connect with my real self and my purpose in life. The business changed, the connections changed, because historically we didn't know each other.
No, but we may as well.
But go to our story. I reached out to you, I dropped any ego and said, hey man, I'd love to catch up with you.
Yep.
Like that was it.
Yeah.
And you didn't have an ego because you go, sure, no worries, man.
Yeah.
And the ego was killed, the opportunity had arose, I should say.
Yeah. Absolutely, and and I hope by sharing our stories, people can relate to, this discussion about pleasure and pain, and to really reflect on their experience in life. Everyone's given certain karma, given opportunity. Every single day you wake up, you've got a decision. Usually within the first 20 minutes of your day, if you don't take hold of those first 20 minutes, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle each day. And that's something that changes when we start to, discipline ourselves, start to transcend this lower nature and start to see more for ourselves. That can come at any point in life. You're 32, when this all changes around, when it hit me, I got hit a bit younger, obviously, because I had to. I think it happened to me because it had to for my evolution and for what I do now. I have so much more to bring than how I was operating. Don't get me wrong, I was doing good things. I run a very successful PT business, personal training business. I was doing fantastic stuff with the mind, working with elite athletes. I was loving what I was doing. We had a good team, good environment there. And then things just stopped working because, I really went outside of myself to try and be more than what I already was, and had to go on a big journey to come back home, so to speak, and once the thing about coming home to yourself, and everyone should feel what that is. We all know this deep down, what it means to come home. It's not needing to wear the mask. It's feeling comfortable in your speech. It's saying what you mean, meaning what you say. There's congruence between who you are, what you say and what you do. That's home. And, this, once you get there, it's never over. That's the thing. It's always a constant layer of discovering yourself and rediscovering yourself. Something that's recently come up for me is this underlying even from all these years back, probably from childhood as well too. I'm doing some work now to figure it out and just to connect some dots. This underlying feeling that impels me to think and almost navigate me away from committing to relationship, committing to business, committing to things that I really need to get done and want to get done. And it holds me back. And that's something that's new to me, That's something that's just come to my point of awareness after all this work I've done on myself, many, many years of work, thousands and thousands of dollars, time across the whole world, learning from gurus, teachers, mentors, the best, all come back to this point, and it never stops. And that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people realize this. they don't put themselves in a position to release the pain and get better perspective and find meaning and a trajectory in their life that's going to set them free. But then when they have that, they actually don't do the upkeep, and take responsibility. This is what I was saying earlier. It's about self-reliance. It is the fundamental key in all cultures, not just our own, for optimal health. Like in healthcare, it presents itself as disease prevention. In business, it's someone who can network and market themselves in such a way that helps people. And the more people we help, the better the business is going to, do well. It's self-reliant. The business is only going to do as well as the person that's running it. It's from top down. So this is the thing about self-leadership. I know this is something you've identified in me, and I agree with it. Like, I love leadership. I think naturally from a young age I developed leadership skills, and and then through this journey I've been on, and all the training that comes with it, I've learnt specific skill sets that allow me to lead in a different way to maybe the general population.
Because I think that's where the most money is in life, is with leaders, right? Because leaders make a lot of money, and I think the reason leaders make a lot of money is not because they're leaders, is because they're very good at being self-led. And what they're very good at being self-led with is purpose and not their egos.
How do you define self-leadership? There's actually a definition to it, but how do you define that?
My interpretation of self-leadership is awareness. Like that's it. It's awareness of our capabilities. It's awareness of our souls. It's awareness of our purpose. It's awareness of why the hell we're here. It's awareness of helping others. It's understanding of mind. And so I think when you can really have yourself figured out, which should be everybody's journey in this life, because then the greatest beauty comes, is when you're really self-aware and you're doing what you need to do to enhance the limitations that become apparent from the awareness, you become very conscious, okay? And when you're conscious of yourself and your purpose and why you're here, you then take those principles and you bring that into others, so that humanity starts to live with more purpose and conviction to help others, which then comes back in return.
Yeah. There's a cycle. I mean,
There's a cycle.
There's a cycle to it as well too. Like, for me, there's lots of different perspectives on what self-leadership is. For me, the sign of a good life is having beautiful things to do. I've sat with Buddhist monks in a monastery, peacefully and really listening to the sound of silence. If you've ever gone through the mind and you actually sit long enough, you can actually hear the sound of silence. It's quite deafening.
So that, in my opinion, is self-led.
Okay.
Because when I say self-leadership, let's go back to our earlier parts of this. Self and soul were synonymous with one another.
Would you still define that as self-leadership if that was my life? If that was my life to sit there in a monastery and not come into the real world, so to speak, and take action, would you say it's still self-leadership?
Yes.
A lot of people wouldn't.
I would. Here's my theory. We started this whole conversation on breath work, sitting still with an intent to breathe deeply. That's self-led. That's not ego-led. I want to go buy the chocolate bar because I'm freaking starving and I need a hit, or I need to go hit the pub.
Don't talk shit about chocolate.
Mate, you've got a purple cord, dude. Mine's black. Right, I'm cool. But my point is you're self-led by intent. But you need to have awareness before you can be self-led.
Absolutely.
And what I mean by awareness, okay, is you need
Otherwise, you're going to be governed by the ego.
It's like, yes, you need to study yourself. Like, if I ever had a degree, or I ever brought a degree to society, it would be a bachelor's degree in understanding who the fuck you are. And it would sell by the millions, because when you can get that, how you think. Like I said to Lara the other day, I said, what's thinking? And she was like, it's a hard one. And I looked up the definition of what thinking is, and it's like, thinking is your perception and your model of the world based on all experiences, and you trying to create connection points in that model.
Yeah.
And so that's almost like the ego and the conditioning of everything that it's seen,
Yeah.
that it knows is okay and is familiar. But I think awareness of that enables you to become self-led away from ego,
Yep.
self-led on who you want to be and how you feel, and
Yep.
then you set intention for your life
Yep.
based on your life's self and your life's purpose. That's what I believe self-led is.
Okay, and to add to that, it's about, for me, about self-leadership. It's so many people create so much pain for themselves and don't take action, almost like they sit in this imposter syndrome or crippling, immobilizing thoughts and don't take action. So much of it is about direction. So we spoke a bit about, you said, the science of the brain and also the mind. See the brain as a physical thing, see the mind as ethereal, and understand that our brain is constantly doing this to produce this level of mind. It actually has to create releases neurochemically that trigger a level of thought. And once that thought's triggered, that's when the experience happens in the body as well too. Now, our brain is constantly looking for direction, path, outcome, closed feedback loop. It needs to know where we're going. It needs to know the path to get there. For most of society, what's the easiest path? Which creates what?
Comfort.
More pain.
More pain, more pain, more comfort.
So direction, path, outcome. What am I going to get from this? Most people make their decisions and what they want immediately to please and create a pleasurable experience to please their emotions. And then what happens? They become weakened because they're governed by themselves emotionally. So we need to take hold of this feedback loop and get some control of our thinking. There's an amazing, I've said this in my podcast on the Drop In with Dan, shameless plug. There is an analogy that the Greeks use, ancient Greeks, I'm pretty sure. Talk about the rider and the horse. Andrew will know this one. So we see the horse. Imagine a rider sitting on top of the horse. The horse actually represents our emotional nature. It's fierce. It creates movement. It impels us to do things. It can be really fierce and get up on its hind legs and just show itself fully. The rider represents our thinking self that holds the reins, that has to steer this horse. Pull the reins too tightly, so to speak. What happens? We close down our emotions. That powerful life force restricts us. What we want to try and do is find ways, skills and strategy to be able to sit on top of that horse, not to grip too tightly on the reins, to navigate it, gently, carefully, balance of yin and yang, stira sukha to the yogis, which is the balance between steadfastness and grace, easy. Yeah, so we find that delicate balance between masculine and feminine, yin and yang. And then that allows us to let those emotions, inspire us, inspire movement. And our thinking mind, which wants to control everything, we're not a slave to that either. We're not a slave to the ego, because we know we can let our emotions and the things we really want to get done and who we want to become guide us. Intuition to also guide us, because we're controlling our mind, so to speak. Does that make sense?
It does.
It brings things into context a little bit.
It does. I think when you can still the mind or still the rider of the horse, which is what you're talking about, okay, so you're finding that kind of, that, I don't know all the fancy words, but the equilibrium point between yin and yang, okay? Let's have a go at this. I think when you can be still, when you can be present, when you can have purpose and understand your end game and your reasons and your conviction and your values of where you're going, and you can be easy about it, just like riding a horse, okay?
Yep.
You can then tap in to the mind,
yep,
to steer the brain, okay, to take the brain to deliver the purpose, okay, in a still manner. Because I think that's what most people are like searching for, so much stuff, but when you can just be still and truthful with yourself and go, and take time, take years, and
take space.
Take space is what I'm getting from you. Is like, go, okay, who am I? What's my purpose? And I'm gonna feel it. So be the good feeling emotions on the horse. Okay, I'm gonna feel it. I'm gonna feel where I'm going. Me and Andrew talk about this a lot. Feel where we're going. Feel what the purpose is. How we want to help humanity. Being aware of that, then we can start to tap into the brain and go, cool. That's where we need to go. And if we run at some things that our ego perceive is painful along the way, that it doesn't want to do because it's uncomfortable, if there's greater purpose and greater conviction, and we know it's for greater reason and reason in life, we can go through that comfortably, purposefully against the uncomfortable, because we're becoming who we really want to be.
Sure, because and what separates people from what you're talking about is the identity layer of a business, the identity layer of a person, the identity layer of a mission for a business. This is who we are. People who know who they are, who have taken time to learn who they are, either through self-inquiry, through meditation, through values study, anything. They've done personality testing. These are all the things that that I actually use in my mentoring. Is we get a connection to that inner psychological self, the inner child, that limbic self, that deeper emotional self, so that we connect to those deeper layers, that deeper identity, so that drives our behavior. When we're driven by belief and we fundamentally have our purpose, our why, we make very different decisions to someone who just wants to do something.
Of course.
Someone who wants to lose weight, this is what happens in the gym, right? I spent 10 years as a personal trainer, and I achieved remarkable results for some clients. I've had some clients that lost 40 kilos with me. And what's the secret sauce to that? Well, in our society, let's just say summer's coming. We want to get in amazing shape for it. All right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the gym. So they sign up to the gym. And now I'm going to go and get these meals. So they sign up to a meal company. So they get shipped these meals. They sign up at the gym. They start. And then what happens?
They might look good for 5 minutes. They might look good for 10 weeks.
When the eyes are off them, no one's looking, you're not getting accountability, it all falls to shit.
You mate, the ego isn't getting the attention that it wants for the comfort.
Because deep down, we fundamentally haven't changed our views and accepted ourselves as we are.
Of course.
And what I'm trying to say is when you accept yourself and you understand how you're working emotionally, you start to make very different decisions. You start to see yourself as someone who's worth eating well. You start to see yourself as someone who's worth setting up a business so that you can live a life you really want to live and not be governed by someone else.
And I think, and I want to tell a story, and I told Andrew this story before we jumped on here, with really no agenda bar helping people, right?
I don't know what, I just know.
Because that's self.
Yeah,
There's no ego in this. There's no ego in this.
Bit of fun.
I said, and this has become apparent over the last 12 months, I wear my heart on my sleeve a lot with what I do and the coaching that I do, and I don't help everyone, full disclosure, right? But I was like, why can't I help everyone? Why can't I help the whole world? And I pretty much cracked the Da Vinci Code on it, that it's like a seesaw. On one side, you've got like that high purpose, high strategy, high reason for life type of people, okay? Sometimes the visionaries, right? And then on the other side of the seesaw, you've got those action-packed, jacked up guys that want to do.
Yep.
Now, usually you've got one or the other. But when they can become mates and you've got the connection point, you usually succeed. That's my opinion. But I had a guy come in the other day who's an action-orientated, jam-packed sort of guy, and he comes in and he's like, I'm doing all of what I'm doing for my mum. I'm doing it to give us the life that we never had. Everything's my family, and he's successful in his business, okay? But I said to him something. I said, look, you're missing something. Do you know what you're missing? He goes, no, I work hard. It's for my family. I've got conviction. I'm gonna run at the pain. I'm gonna run at the discomfort, and no one's gonna take me down. He's an athlete as well. He's very mentally tough. Okay, I said, why don't you in your business find that same level of conviction and reason to actually help humanity? And if you really have that same level of reason, just like your family, and you go just as hard, like there's no quitting because you want to help people so badly and fix a problem in society so bad, the money will come in abundance and you will be able to feed that straight back into your family. And it was an epiphany for him, because so many people think that they shouldn't be philanthropists and they shouldn't be charities and they shouldn't just go out and want to give to the world, because that's so associated with the yogis to some degree, the carers of the world, right? Yeah. But the actual reality is when you can have a really compelling reason, really compelling purpose, be really in tune with yourself and what you want to give to this world and people that are in it, you succeed and you help everyone around you succeed.
Yeah, that's what's that? Fundamentally, what I said earlier is the self-reliance.
Yeah.
How do we become self-reliant? How do we get ourselves up to a stage where we're philanthropists, so to speak, where we give back? Let's be real about it. Like, we've got priorities. You've got priorities. I've got priorities.
Not even give back. Give first.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. Don't give back. Give first to get. Call it selfish.
Well, if you're ever going to lose yourself in the eye of service.
100%.
You'll find yourself.
But you get paid millions of dollars to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what society has incorrectly given us.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of like, I think for a lot of people, like we're not, it's another thing we haven't been taught. We haven't been taught how to manage ourselves in a monetary sense. When it comes to time, we've always been like unconsciously a slave to our time. When we learn strategies and we build a business, or we, seek the next level of performance to actually free ourselves around our time, our energy, and our money, our cup gets fuller, and we're able to give from an overflow. This is the thing that a lot of people do, is they have good intentions, and they actually want to do really well. Their cup's empty, yeah? And then rather than filling the cup up and turning the lens back towards self-love, goes the other way. And then they're not giving their best. They're not giving from an overflow. There's this. I see this a lot when I used to work with families and especially in more of that sort of counselling therapy role. It's like you see this a lot in families like that really struggle to put themselves first, because there's this societal construct that says it's very selfish to do that. And my response to this is, what's selfish? Giving 10% of what you're capable of, or delivering from a flow of 100. One's going to cost you an immersion with me for a week to totally fill that cup up and get skills that are going to last a lifetime. The other is running away from something you need to find in yourself to do, to put first.
I see that all the time.
Yeah.
I see that all the time in business, because I am so close to clients financially that they are so fixated and associated with cost in this world.
Yeah.
It's if you've got the immersion with Dan that costs X amount,
yeah,
right? But the value and the life changing and the self-awareness that's going to be developed from that, they don't understand that disproportionate value.
They're putting $2,000 towards an iPhone.
Correct. Which is materialism, and it comes from the ego being stimulated by pleasure. Okay.
Yes. Look for the 4 A's.
Absolutely.
Did you see the post I put up about 4 A's?
I did.
Yeah. What are they?
Appreciation.
Appreciation's one, yes.
Appreciation. I'll let you fill in the rest.
Attention.
But I've got a point after this I need to make.
Attention, appreciation, approval, and acceptance. How we work, emotionally, mentally, we try and look for that through the means of the external real estate, because we're human. So much of who we are as social beings, there's a part of us that needs to connect to others to live well. The better we are in connection with other people, the better we thrive. We don't just survive, we thrive. We thrive in connection with other people. So this is a very Paleolympic part of the brain, more of that emotional but herd mentality, right? Which is why we stick in herds. And to step outside the herd is extremely scary, because you're breaking free from that parameter of the brain. So when we start to find attention, appreciation, approval, acceptance within, and fill that cup, so to speak, we become deadly free. Now, a lot of people fear that, and not a lot of people do that, because it asks you to step outside of what you know, to break free from the pack, so that you can become something and someone that is self-reliant on themselves. You become optimized in the process. You give from an overflow. You offer a different perspective. 100%. You also present a different energy to people.
And I think that's the problem is purpose and doing to help others, having a purpose in life, right? It's actually very fulfilling, It feels very good, especially if you are on purpose with what you love to do, okay? Because the monies are okay, but the money's more of like a wealth ego sort of thing.
This is something that's changed in you since I met you.
Now you still got to make money. I'm always going to tell people to make money.
But look at what's changed for you since we met. Like, that was the biggest thing when we met. It's just like that was the thing that you saw all the same books. We read the same books. We started talking about spirituality. We're sitting down at the cafe, and it was so much about I've achieved what I need to achieve in the monetary sense. I'm looking for something more meaningful.
Oh, of course. And I think you said something before, and it had touched on what I'm doing with a lot of group coaching guys right now. It's get purpose, get your emotions right, get your feel good stuff right, get your cup full. Okay, get your cup full first. Okay, like you said, if
the base of the hierarchy.
The hierarchy, it's the pinnacle.
Yeah.
But if you have a job that you're not happy with, or you're just your ego's too in it, right? Get your purpose right. Go on a holiday. Go sit in a room with the monks. Whatever you got to do. Be still. Understand what makes you feel phenomenal and how you want to help people in a phenomenal way, because it will feel really good, right?
Yep.
That's the first bit. But with these guys that I coach, I say in red, because red's passion and purpose, right? Put in your calendar, schedule it in that you're going to have purpose and passion and big why time every week. Because the more you're doing that, the more you're living a life on purpose with conviction that's far greater than money. Then you start to go down the traffic light system. The yellows are the high value strategies that get your purpose out in the world. And the green are you doing, or the things you've got to do, or the actions you've got to take, which is usually what is known to people.
And why a lot of people are frustrated and not in charge of this stuff is because they don't prioritize that. It's boundaries. People don't know how to. This is a skill set thing. This is a skill set. So when you talk about high performance doesn't just have to be the elite athletes I work with. It doesn't have to be the elite business owners, the entrepreneurs. Some creatives are doing amazing things right now. You don't have to just be that. High performance is literally just developing a skill set that allows you to step outside of, what is considered the norm. And if I look at the norm if I'm being honest, it's a soft society. I don't want to compare myself to society. I want to compare me to me. I'm in competition with the person I was yesterday, with where I've come. When I look back at my life and where I've come from, not the person I see on Instagram, I'm fucking deeply proud of myself.
Yeah.
At one point in my life, all I deeply longed for was hearing those words. Was I'm proud of you. You're good enough. Until I found those in myself. That's where you become deadly free. And that's a process. But that was 10 years.
And that's powerful because...
That's 10 years to find that.
That's powerful because that's something that I relapse into still, okay? And we always will, and I know you will as well.
Absolutely.
Okay? You relapse back to the ego of approval from others because that's how we're brought up. Like,
absolutely.
Does he like me?
Yeah.
And still...
Do you like me, Ryan?
Absolutely. I love your shirt more, but I love you. But what I'm saying is you go into it, and I'm going to apply this in the business context, right? Historically, I'd walk into a sales meeting, or I'd walk into meeting you the first time we met in the cafe, or I'd walk into something, the ego would kick in. Yep. It would start associating with the past or the future, or what was going on. What's he going to think? What's he going to say? Blah, blah.
Yeah.
And you're automatically back in the mind of the ego, right?
Yeah.
But I think,
held at that level.
Yeah, but I think when you're comfortable in yourself
and
you truly can abide by not caring what external people say or think or do, but you're doing the best for yourself, living a life on purpose and meaning to help others because it feels really fucking good, because you're fueled and you're fulfilled, it's like, I'm always going to have this good energy.
Yeah.
I'm always going to set these boundaries of this energy and this purpose, and I'm not going to care, but I'm going to be ridiculously present when I'm in this podcast or when I'm in this sales meeting or whatever, or whether I'm coaching my team or I'm talking on stage, because you're living a life of purpose and meaning. Yeah. And I think that's a powerful start.
To talk about who we actually are, like in our nature, it's like we're creative beings. I was talking about the hierarchy. I wish we had sort of like, What's the guy on the Joe Rogan Experience? He draws that. Jamie, put up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the top of the pinnacle of the hierarchy, he just wants you all to envisage that you can see this hierarchy. We've got our basic physiological needs, and we build up towards the higher self-actualization, or reaching our own creative potential. So understand we're creative beings on a pathway to fulfilling our potential, which is why when we hear the word growth, or we're always looking to do more, we get one thing and we want the next. It impels us forward. movement and having things to do that are hopefully in the right direction for yourself, that's why it's really powerful. The brain's always going to want to do that. It's going to want the next thing. It's a sign of a good life to me. That's what I understand.
Maybe it's always wanting the next thing to be more developed as ourself, so we're greater internal performers and self-led people, and that's something that really inspires me. Always to be changing through discomfort and pain to becoming more of who I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great brain association of growth.
It's a two-way street. When we talk about studies of happiness, like we are at record lows. We have everything in our society. We have
nothing.
We have things that
Everything
our ancestors, exactly. We know the value of everything, how much things are going to cost, but we don't have any idea the value of things, like the true value of things. We know how much stuff costs, we don't value things. So we have all these things in our life. We have a device in our hands that at the time could have flown a fucking rocket to the moon. We should be happy. We're not. And this really tells us to look inward, to come back to ourselves and understand why. Ask ourselves that fundamental question, why? And understand that it's a two-way street. We want to create a direction for ourselves. As I said, direction is very important, particularly for the masculine. Masculine needs direction, which is why a lot of men, when they hear purpose, they get triggered. It's a deeply ingrained thing in a man to have direction and provide safety, provide for their family, their loved ones, their mother, drives a business forward. If we don't have that, it's very, very hard for us to truly feel free. But then there has to be reflexive time as well too. We can't just keep driving forth. There has to be a reflexive time where we almost take space to be in the present moment, to ask ourselves, what is enough? Not enough people ask themselves that question. What is enough to you?
I think it's a misconception as well. I think these guys that want to...
Contentment.
Yeah, and I think they guys go out, including myself, right, and they want to provide for their family, like the guy that I mentioned before, who's hustling for his mother, okay, because that's security. But the irony is they're not taught, the schooling system, nobody teaches these guys unless they're coached. No one teaches them that you make more money, you have more security when you design products and services that truly help people get a massive result.
Yeah.
Like that's how it works.
Yep.
But they're so fixated in their head of, no, I've just got to work really hard just doing, not being, just doing. I've got to do for someone else, an employer, whatever it may be, and I'll have security. But the irony isn't like that. No, I've got to self-lead myself, performance enhance myself, help others like with some crazy conviction, purpose and reason, and then I'll have more security than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah, well, it's security. There's no. It's actually an illusion. Like
it is 110%. It's an illusion. You don't have security if you're working hard. I call BS on that every day of the week.
Which is why something that we like. I think what we've.
You're good at that. I respect you for that. You set boundaries. You don't work with the system, and you say, I'm living a life of purpose. Even though the limbic brain's very emotional, I'm always going to keep trying to crack the Da Vinci Code on understanding my emotions, myself, and what fuels me. And you hold yourself and your time and your money accountable to that, right? And therefore, you deliver people greater results.
Yeah.
Most people don't think like that. Most people aren't aware like that.
Well, I think most people just take the easy way out, and also they don't. For me, if I'm going to tell someone, so my job, whether people like me or don't, my job's still done. Why? I'm either going to trigger people and that creates a massive result, or I'm going to trigger people and they're going to create it with someone else or with themselves. My job's still done.
100%.
And that's when you understand the meaning of life.
Purposefully.
Yeah,
You've done it purposefully.
Now, this is the thing. A lot of people want to tell people what to do. Who are you before you tell me that? Is your bed clean?
Yeah.
Is the house in check? Who are you to give advice and to tell me what to do if you haven't got that in check? So this is something that I made sure when I started this journey, moving away from what I did into what I do, is I set a specific standard for myself. It's never going to be perfect, and I understand this. I'm a human being. But I also understand that my example sets my standard. My standard and my example is what people truly respond to. It's not so much what I say, it's how much I care. It's where I come from. It's that deeper spiritual thing that I have anchored. And this is something that, is in the base of the hierarchy before we get to our full potential, so to speak, which we never ever get there anyway.
No way.
Ask yourself, what's enough for me? Find fulfillment. Find fulfillment and love in the process. we set ourselves in this wild direction, chasing goals and things we think we want. We get there and we're not fulfilled.
No.
That's like me. When I first made my first triple figures in business, the first year of business, I worked my ass off and I was doing like 14, 16-hour days. At $100,000, I was not happy. At the time, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What makes you feel good? What do you do in what you do that makes you feel good? Be completely honest.
Yep.
What makes you feel good?
When I say I'm going to do something and I mean what I say and I do it, that makes me feel amazing for a certain period of time. When I bring people together and I create an experience of people that enriches their life, it gives them that immersive experience to truly learn and to connect with people who are like-minded on the same mission. To me, that's my freedom. That's my joy.
And so see how you're making a difference.
Yeah.
See how you're making an impact. See how you're changing someone's life. See how once you've changed their life, there's no amount of money that can replace that, but it's still not about the money.
No.
But you still got to make the money because then you can help more people.
So many people go, to work with me one-to-one is quite an investment. What you get back, though, is also very, very significant.
Of course it is.
People ask me, why do you still teach yoga? Like, do you get paid well? And that's just like, do you understand what yoga is? Do you understand what it does for me? Every time I go and teach, even those days I don't want to, trust me, I get out, there's days I don't want to drive out to go and teach yoga class. And I'm working on an app that's going to go out to hundreds of thousands of people. But I go there because it does something for me, to me. I can't explain it. It's part of my journey. Yoga saved my life. Who am I not to give that back? Why would I withhold that invaluable connection point for people? And I think a lot of people these days, they lose that. They think, okay, how am I going to pay the next bill? They think, I want to make all this money. It's the same reason when people start to, lead with how much they know. I know a bit. I don't know enough. I never will. That's the beginning of all wisdom. But what I do know is that above all else, when I'm in something, I'm in it. You're going to feel it, and I care. And that's all people want.
I think it's because you've got reason. I think when you're going to that yoga studio and your mind, your ego might not want to go to the yoga studio, right? Because you might be a little bit fatigued, a little bit tired. The old purpose and the reason kicks in, and then you know that you're actually helping people, just like yoga helps.
Well, it's a state of flow. This is the thing. This is a highly desirable. I see it marketed. It's marketed to the hills these days. Gee, flow. 26 days to flow. What is flow? Like, what are you selling me?
You know what I reckon flow is?
Flow
is just feeling freaking good.
And why? Why do you feel good?
Because it just internally, you just those emotions are just those purposeful emotions.
Yeah,
they're in check. They're in alignment.
Is a similar feeling to when you do breath work, right? We get to that deep state of breath work and meditation. So what we do is we get beyond the thinking mind.
Yeah, to the feel goods.
Yeah, and to quantify it from an ESM standpoint, it is the meditative absorption. Concentrate our mind into something. It's the meditative absorption into non-dual awareness, and it becomes autonomous. Things flow together. It's like rather than swimming upstream, we start to swim downstream, and that's the learning process. We start incompetent, unskilled. We don't know it. We start to develop skills. We start to learn things, but we're still incompetent. We start to learn things again. They start to become ingrained, all right? But we're not as confident. We get to the top, we become unconscious again, where we started, but it's programmed in. We're now skilled. We have competence to meet the demand. I rocked up today to know what I'm going to talk about. I know it's perfect.
It is because it's purpose based, right? Our reason for being on here is to help people, like we've been helped through pain ultimately to become good performers, okay? And I think it's that level of awareness of self and of pain and of purpose, right? Purpose and pain, they probably are good mates, because when you run at pain, you probably deliver more of your purpose because you get further away from your ego. But yeah, we didn't have an agenda. I said to you, Dan, how can we help people in a great way today? What do you think it is? And it was like, well, let's...
I have one condition.
You get to wear your purple shirt.
And I have my purple cord.
Right?
I have my purple cord attached to the microphone. It's the only condition I come here. It must align.
So you can see this guy is very far away from the egotistical norm of humanity.
As I said,
because he's comfortable with his heart and his purple
as I
colours.
said, that's quite an ego thing. That's actually linked to perfectionism in me, but I'm aware of that. I know when that thing goes off, when I'm trying to be too perfect, and it mobilizes me, which is something that we all have. You know, that's the thing. That's the thing about self-awareness. It's not to try and be perfect. It's to know thyself. It's to know how you're driven. It's to know what fascinates you, what impels you to make decisions. What is going to ultimately lead to more pain? Once you learn this stuff and you actually integrate wisdom and self-awareness and you become what you speak about rather than trying to teach everyone about it, the example, you then make better decisions that help you to navigate the pleasure-pain cycle. You become higher than that level.
And I think this is really important, the point I'm going to make, and I think you'll back me on this, is you can never lead people unless you've been through pain to get to success, right? You can never really lead people because you never really understand the story of the pain because you weren't willing to do it. You and I had our hands forced to go through pain.
Absolutely.
To understand how pleasurable pain was in changing who we are, or not changing who we are, changing the ego to develop more of who we are, okay? So I think
the reasoning for this is kind of twofold. We have a bullshit detector. I have it, you have it, Will has it, CUNY has it. When someone speaks, there's something in us that says, this doesn't line up. Sometimes we don't even think about it. It just is an impulse that tells us no. That's why. But also, you can only take people to the level that you're willing to. So it's will, it's the essential I am, the center of you. It's will and also experience. You can only meet people, or take people to the level that you've actually met yourself on.
correct. And I think
Information is in abundance. Everyone wants to give information.
yep.
Execution, integration of self is very rare.
So there should actually be then profound beauty in running at pain that is purposeful pain to be more of who we really want to be, because then we develop those pain-based stories that got us to who we wanted to be, that we can then help others to move through that pain as well, or that perceived pain.
We have a lot of understanding about this stuff now, but like for people listening, what can we do each day? Like I spoke about the importance of the first 20 minutes of your day, harnessing that, making sure that sets the tone and the standard for the rest of your day. That's how we win the day. You're gonna have a very different day if you get up in the morning
100%.
and you take hold of those 20 minutes. If you roll over and scroll your phone, hit snooze button on your life, you're going to have a very different life. These compound. Think about things in compound interest.
100%.
When you understand the power of compounding interest, you understand the power of compounding habit.
Of course.
And where you can go with it. But also in both directions. You can go down, you can go up. You choose. You choose.
Yeah, I did a leadership talk a couple of weeks ago, and a large percentage of the people, the leaders in the room, check their phone first thing in the morning. They don't train.
I'll be honest, it's a habit that I need to iron out at the moment. It
should be illegal. You know why?
The last 5 days I've stopped it. It's been amazing.
Oh, it's beautiful, because then if you're not working on yourself, which is the whole point of this podcast, right? First, like we talk about cold showers, training,
there we go.
Reading, juices, 3 litres of water, whatever it is that gets you high purpose, high energy, high performance, self ready to roll. If your first thing is checking a mobile phone, guess what you're doing? You've gone to the ego for stimulation, for pleasure, right? Or reactivity. You're looking at all these external factors to come into the phone that you're going to respond to. And you've completely just gone, I'm going to give an F of my actual self today. I'm not going to be myself today.
And all your brain circuits are hardwired to instant gratification. The dopamine cycle of your brain is now completely destroyed from that phone use. All right, how do I fix this now? Well, how can I get my day started? Rather than consuming adequate hydration, I'm going to go for a coffee. And then suddenly you set yourself up in this adrenal spike that triggers the adrenals and sends you off. And you're not yourself. You're responding to life. You are not proactive anymore. The day was lost in that spiraling down because of that first 20 minutes of your day.
Imagine if you do that for your whole life.
Yeah. One of the things that I try and set up every single day is the Bulletproof Morning. There's two choices. Do I want a slow start to my day, which is still progress, momentum? So I call it the smooth start. Then I have the power up. The power up's taking action. A lot of vitality gets stimulated, a lot of prana in the body. We have the smooth start, which is a bit more yin. It's still movement, and it allows me to get greater perspective, to really still the mind. So the Bulletproof Morning looks like the things I deeply value connections. That's a big part of my morning. Before I find that, I'll do my breath work and meditation. I'll then get into the ocean, get my heart rate up, do some dives, connect to nature, but also put myself under a bit of stress, good stress. Come out of that, enjoy my coffee after hydration with friends and connect with people who are like-minded, start my day as soon as I get home. That's my morning. And that's a power up.
Yeah, and
I watch the sunrise, and who books into my day? Like who gets me before all that? No one.
You should get yourself.
No one. You could offer me $1 million, I'll knock it back. This is number one.
And that's the same. It's those boundaries you were talking about. Like I'm the same. I have to do the breathing in the morning, right? Which was a habit influenced by yourself. So I do the 20 minutes advanced breathing, as Wim Hof says, believe it or not, right?
Yep.
Then I move over to the cold shower for 5 minutes.
You'll be getting off the Wim Hof app when mine comes
out. I will. Thanks for that little. Hey, I'm teaching you good in sales, mate. You're all
shameless plug part 2.
Mate, that purple shirt.
Check out
that purple shirt could sell anyone, even your mother. But then I jump into the cold shower. Now, usually a lot of people would go cold shower that there's no chance, but it becomes euphoric after a while because you know that the pain's making you better and making you stronger and making the willpower stronger. Yeah. Then I go and train and I do certain things. That 1.5 hour block, guess what? What some would perceive as pain, which I find pleasurable, okay, but let's say it's pain, right? Yep. That bit of pain then, I come into a meeting at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whatever it is, because of the cold water, high energy, like very alert. The energy in my body is very euphoric from the training, okay? I'm in a very good state of being. Guess what? That lasts the whole day.
Yeah.
So that little bit of pain for that great amount of pleasure, even though over time that little bit of pain in the morning turns into pleasurable activity.
Exactly.
Because you actually, yourself and your soul seeks that to performance enhance.
So and it can be the difference. That's something so simple. Again, that's gained a lot of momentum, like breath work, for a good reason. You're giving yourself an influx by going under cold water. You can do a cold shower that lasts 10 seconds. You can do a cold shower that lasts 4 minutes. You're still exposing yourself to good acute stresses, not the chronic stresses that we're so used to by too much screen time, by coffee. We have a coffee epidemic in Australia. I love coffee, but too much of it will fry my adrenals, and it's a slippery slope. So it's a balancing act. I won't take it away, but I'll know how to work with it. Now, when we wake up in the day, and the first thing in the morning, we do breath work and we get under the cold water, we're going to release a flood of benefits, a flood of positive stress hormones, norepinephrine, noradrenaline, cortisol. Things will get released in the brain into the body, and they give you that beautiful sense of well-being. It'll also build your character and make you stronger, more resilient. So you're already facing discomfort early in your day. It's like you agree to yourself in that first 20 minutes, anything that comes my way today, because life's not fair, as a baseline of suffering to this life, I accept the challenge. I'm ready for you. Not, oh God, I feel so sluggish. I've just scrolled for 45 minutes. I shouldn't have had that coffee. I feel fried already. There's a difference.
There is.
You lost the day in the first 20.
And how good is it? Like if you go back on your life and I go back on my life, the things that we perceived as the most painful, like our stories we spoke about, like boxing for me or footy or just things that were scary, that you had fear of, that you had pain of, on the other side of that was such a change of character and love for self and breaking of our mind almost, that we become an enhanced version of ourselves, just like the cold water in the morning, that your mind doesn't want you to do, the protection mechanism doesn't want you to do, but when you do it, you've unlocked a little bit of yourself for the day. When you can do that on small things like cold showers, or you can do it like breathing, or you can do it with fights or playing football or standing on a stage, you're becoming a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
And so you start to look at pain in a different light. You actually find that pain is pleasurable and is making you who you really want to be.
I think so many people in society, they neglect the connection that actually the nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. When we do this cold stuff or cold immersion, and we're using Nicole as an example, there are many practices: dancing, running on the spot, yoga, Tai Chi, anything that helps you. Everyone has a practice to find. What is the practice for you that allows you to free the nervous system from stress, allows you to connect to the present moment, to enhance the 5 senses, which are the physical senses we're given to interpret the world around us, that's governed by the nervous system, which includes brain and the body. So if we take charge and we gain control of our senses and understand our mind, gain control of our thinking, then surely, since so much of our thinking and our thoughts determine our mental landscape that creates our life, our external real estate, then why are we working so hard outside of ourselves to create the outcomes that ought to get created internally before they reflect externally? Any change you make internally is by law going to make cause and effect in the external real estate. And until we make those changes internally, people constantly chase themselves on a hamster wheel.
I think
patterns, loops.
I've been speaking about this for a couple of years, and I know you have around law of attraction, and I know it's kind of it's a real thing.
Yep.
Okay,
it's one fundamental law.
It is. You just said law then, and I picked up straight away with what you were talking about. Okay, so the law of attraction, and I've been able to articulate it to people in not just a spiritual light before. I've said, like, if you can visualize being different to what you are now, if you can see a vision that makes you feel good and makes you feel good emotions, and you get that nice juicy hit of belief of, like, that could be me and I could actually have this.
That's the design nature. Remember that emotional nature?
Yeah.
Come back to the rider and the horse.
The horse, right? The horse is like, he's
You've got to have that. You can't hold it too tightly. You're going to feel restricted.
This horse is like,
too much head noise.
He's
no
feeling good. And then that horse, because he's feeling good, with his rider on the top, because they're empowering egotistical thoughts of the mind, not bad ego based on past or future fears, the horse starts to move. So the law of attraction actually came from the consciousness of the thought process of just, this could happen. I can visualize this, I can feel this, and then that feeling and that energy turns into movement, and then that outside stuff starts to come in. And I think some people think law of attraction is you just sit there and you just meditate. And
there's so many misconceptions.
And boom, there you go. You've got a car. Like, it's
a lot of people like have this like woo-woo mysticism perspective on it. Any thought, this is what the law of attraction is. By law, any thought that is emotionalized becomes magnetized. It attracts similar or like thoughts. That's what happens when we make changes internally. It starts to change the people, the circumstances, the situations and the events that happen to us externally. So any thought that's emotionalized and it makes us feel good, it's in the right direction, becomes magnetic. Tesla, the greatest mind in our time, that is responsible for the reason why we have this equipment to be having these chats, and it's filmed like this. When we want to understand more about the nature of reality ourselves, think in terms of vibration and frequency. Any thought that's magnetized, emotionalized, becomes magnetized or attracts similar like thoughts. That's a really basic understanding to understand what the law of attraction is. How do we do it? We can visualize. Visualize is creating a mental picture, imagining what things could look like. Bringing the emotional side to it is what's known as seeding. You're planting a seed of consciousness through feeling to lift the vibration of the thought. And that's the key ingredient. A lot of people just sit there and imagine it, but they don't really feel impelled and it doesn't feel true. Just like when you run into someone who's talking shit and you realize they're just talking out their ass or they're just sharing information. It's not lived experience. It's not wisdom. It's the same thing. It lacks the emotional vigor, lacks the emotional connection.
Can I ask you a question? So you're thinking good thoughts. You're using your mind to your advantage this year. You're planning some big stuff. You're starting to build belief and emotion into that. Okay. Yep. What do you think happens after you've got that visualization and those feel-good emotions and that empowerment going on?
Yep.
What do you think happens? Do you think the external objects come towards you, or do you think you're invigorated by your own thought and emotion system that you start actually moving towards them and they're receptive?
Yep. I want a new car, Ryan.
Yep.
I want to upgrade it. All right. For some reason, I decide I want that. Oh my God, this car's everywhere now.
The old RAS.
Yes, this car's everywhere now. You can't stop seeing it. I need to get that car now. All right. All things exist there. There are opportunities everywhere. Money is everywhere. This is the thing that when I say money is everywhere to people, like, you need to just think outside the box. They have a hard time doing it. Now, the easiest way to understand about frequency and about our frequency, you've got your own frequency, I've got my own frequency, that are governed by similar laws, but they have a different dynamic internally and externally. All right. We share space in this world, but we operate in two different ways. Understanding how it works, like, let's just say the car's up here on a certain frequency. The easiest way to understand it to someone who's new to this, or maybe has a bit more of a scientific brain, which this is science anyway. There's a science to it. Let's just understand, we're on the coast. I don't even listen to the radio. I don't watch TV. I pulled the aerial out many years ago. But let's just say 101.3, is it still CFM? That's down here. All right? We're driving the car. All right? You got your Beamer here. I know you want to make an upgrade soon. All right? That upgrade exists on 107.7. You can't listen to the songs and the transmission on 101.3 CFM at the same time as listen to 107.5 or whatever it is. They're not the same frequency. You can't listen to the same song at the same time. You have to turn one off to get to the other. So rather than answering this question, I've kind of slipped by the answering the question because it's completely subjective to the person.
Yeah.
I don't have a definitive answer I can give you to that.
No, that's okay.
But I can help you understand.
Yeah. So I completely
Law of
agree.
attraction is about understanding.
It is. It's about understanding and awareness that we've been speaking about, and it's about being able to consciously and in awareness state to get to those higher frequencies of thought, those higher feel-good parts of thought. I think you're spot on. You need to back the thought, the great perspective style thoughts with some seriously good feeling, right? Like you're already there, because then you start to change your subconscious, okay, or your programming that we spoke about as well. But I do believe myself, okay, is that those thoughts and that perspective and that starting to feel good and that starting to be as if we've already got it, right?
Yes.
You start to move. You just do. You move.
You move
right?
differently.
You move differently. You move more energetically. You move more with a higher frequency, and then stuff moves to you too, because your body language, your energy, how you talk, your excitement, those higher frequency emotions are bringing people in and they're resonating with you.
When we identify ourselves as someone who's purely just physical, we'll make different decisions to someone who also identifies ourselves as spiritual beings here to navigate the physical. A lot of people struggle with this question, like, I don't have the meaning for life, right? It'd be very egotistical of me.
I reckon I do.
I'll drop this and we'll see what you think about it. Where was I with this? The meaning of life. So the meaning for me is just we aren't given a meaning. We're here to create it.
Yeah, great. Amen.
And that's where we agree.
Yeah, amen.
What I was talking about, I've lost my train of thought a little bit here. Refresh my mind on what we were talking about before that.
We're talking about the meaning of life, and I was about to really interrupt you and say that the meaning of life is where you're here, right? And maybe I've been listening to too much Esther Hicks lately, but you're here. It's an experience. It's an experience of you get to choose to feel good. Usually where you're going to feel good is where your purpose is. And when you live a life of great experience, feel good and purpose, and you attract lots of people into that vortex and that realm, you then pass away at some point into the next life.
So many people stop and invalidate the law of attraction. People demonize and say it doesn't work, it's stupid. They stop.
They don't feel good.
They don't understand. They don't understand. This is the thing. When you understand yourself as purely physical, and you don't understand the spiritual side of things in the realm and how it works, it's not governed by time, space, reality like we are. It's more of a quantum model than a Newtonian model of physics. So time is irrelevant. You've got to ask for what you want. You've got to align yourself to what you want, and then it's given. You've got to detach also from the time space of that. So how does this look in our life? Well, have you ever done a course, right? You've learned all this new knowledge. You've built your business. Where are all the clients? Where are all the people that want to work with me? I've got all these skills and things to offer the world, but they're not here in front of me yet. Classic example. And then people quit a business right before their breakthrough because they haven't understood that it takes a little bit of time. There's a bit of a time gap between our internal real estate and our external real estate. And that's why meditation is really powerful. Meditation is really powerful because what it actually does to us, it allows us to close our eyes, to come in, and we start to withdraw our senses, all right, gradually. You'll start to hear all the cars around you in the car park. And you might even feel the wind, and then gradually things will start to come in. You become more inward, and then you start to reflect on the day, and you experience these thoughts, whether left to right, right to left. And then what starts to happen is you reflect on your day, and you start to map and tap the self with the day that's been and the day that's coming. So you start to get more of an honest and sincere connection to your external reality, external real estate, and the internal real estate. And that is why meditation is so powerful. Breathwork's very powerful. It gets to the heart of things, it gets to the meat, right in the depths real quickly. But for me, meditation is that experience where I can get a longer connection and a better opportunity to really go inward and make that sincere connection and that appraisal. So to me, I didn't always talk the way I talk. A lot of people like the way I speak and how I'm articulated. They like how I can express myself. I did not have these skills. I'm telling you, I was very, very basic. I was very, very scared, very anxious, worried about what people thought.
So was I.
And that comes with this reflection, this ability to reflect. It literally equals your intelligence. It's in direct proportion to your intelligence. How well you write becomes how well you speak. How well you think becomes how well you reflect. It's a two-way street. When you get better at that process and you practice that each day, you're going to create better outcomes, better connections to people around you. Your mission becomes clearer. Your connection to other people becomes clearer. And how you can help energetically starts to become clearer to people. They're going to feel it. That's the law of attraction at play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good point. Like I struggled.
We've been going for 2 hours almost. Anyone got time?
Yeah. So we might wrap this up now, but that was a good point. So I was similar to you. I struggled with emails. I struggled with speaking. I always was in my head or my ego thinking of what I was going to say next based on what you said first. I always needed an agenda for days like today.
Yep.
But then the more I got in tune with like myself, breath, meditation, who I am, not care about everyone else and just be vulnerable and be myself, words came out much quicker. Everything became simpler, which I stress the point to you a lot. Always make it simple because with simple comes purpose. With purpose comes conviction and meaning, okay? And everything had a lot more flow to it.
You know, that's something you've really helped me with, you know, for people that listen. What can Ryan offer me? You might be thinking that in business and with my organisations, with my wealth profile. What can Ryan help me do? Well, I've got a pretty complex brain.
No way. We've been going for an hour and 40.
We're going to go for 3.
I'll tap out.
I've got
as much as I love being here, there's a little bit of energy that needs replenishment, mate.
Yeah, so. I've got to fill that cup up. Self-love.
Yeah, I need some water, mate.
So Ryan does a fantastic job, and he's truly helped me. We've been building some things behind the scenes that we're gonna reveal in time. It'll be a perfect time for it. Ryan's really helped me frame my IP, my intellectual property, to make things simpler, to not overspeak, and that's something we do in our culture, our Western society. We over-explain things, we make things too complicated. I've been recently going for learning from the land. I've been went to an amazing event on Australia Day actually, and learnt from the Indigenous parts of our country here, from Indigenous elders, with a great community. There's about 450 of us. And then yesterday I took an experience to a sacred site and understood story and the range and the country and the land and the role of story and perspective from Aboriginal lineages. So thank you, Casey, for that. It puts things into perspective of how, so many of us, we overcomplicate our lives. In high performance, we've got to close these mental tabs down. We've got to get sharper, easier, more energy efficient. What's the overarching purpose of breath work? It's to become energy efficient. That's where we started, and that's where we're going to end it.
And I think purpose and simplicity, they do go hand in hand. I think to end where we started, we're born simple, we're born joyous, we're born breathing properly, and then the system eventually over time, right, starts to make it more complicated, more confusing, more ego-driven. And I think it's part of our journey, our hero's journey almost, to start to go back to that simplicity, go back to that purpose, to go back to where that soul is, and then we achieve monstrumental things in our life by helping others and understanding the true simplicity of performance.
So if you're on a journey, and if you've really, I guess, you've heard the word breathwork or you want to learn more about breathwork, as I said, I've got an app coming out. It might be out by the end of this podcast is released, but we'll see what happens. But if you just want to learn how to correct my breathing, maybe you identify as someone who, when you're really stressed, you start to breathe through the chest, and all of these involuntary muscles of breath around the neck and shoulders, you're storing heaps of stress and tension. Look up on YouTube crocodile breathing and learn how to breathe with the diaphragm again, expanding 360 degrees outward, taking a full breath so that these upper motor regions are not lifting you up into more stress. We're actually sending things down. We're down regulating our nervous system. We're sending the mind back into the diaphragm, the second brain. And we're allowing ourselves to have a more deeper, fulfilling and enriching breath that supports our life, allows us to become more energy efficient, so we're not hijacked and operating from stress states, which so many of us are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
And my final point is this guy's a gun at breathwork. He got me onto it. I'm all about it. I'm still heavily in my learning phase, so there'll be a lot more to come. I love the breathwork. I love the cold immersion. I love what you're about. I love your journey. I think the essence to performance with yourself and your business this year is definitely going to come down to you taking a look at yourself. Always, how can I become better? How can I break bad habits? How can I run at pain? How can I change? How can I level up? It's always those questions. How can I become more personal? How can I, not personal, how can I work more personally on myself? How can I do things that I'm not comfortable with so I can get more of myself? So just, you are the essence to growing your business. I know some of the stuff we've spoken about is a bit spiritual, and we've spoken about ego.
We've taken lots of different standpoints, which is good. Perspective's power.
Exactly, but these are starting to trigger you into going, there is a lot more than what we are actually aware of in who we are and who we could become. Okay, so we're just starting to touch on that. But it's been a good session. It's been a pretty powerful session. My head's kind of doing backflips at the minute, and we've been going for almost 2 hours. So full respect, full love. Thanks for coming in, brother.
Cheers, bro.